It sound right, boy.
What's going on, guys? How you doing? Welcome back to 4-5 Fans. This is the show for the fans, by the fans, and I'm so happy that you guys are tuning in. I'm joined, as always, with MJ, our Twitter correspondent, Sam, our very own version of the bad guy, and Mystic Sam. And this week, we have a special guest. Sahar is joining us. Masood, our voice of reason, Master Masood, is out this week. He's going to be back strong next week. No worries. And we can't wait to have him back. But this week, we have a special guest joining us tonight. Sahar, thank you so much for joining us. Hey, how's everyone doing?
Pretty good as always.
All right.
Thanks for coming, Sahar.
So this week we have a great show lined up for you. We are going to be previewing the fight card that's coming up this Saturday, which is Volkov versus Overeem. We're also going to be talking a lot with Sahar and another guest as well tonight regarding MMA, UFC, everything that's going on in the Twitter world, and especially today where we have some big breaking news, sort of Twitter news, if you will, with Stephen A. Smith. So we're going to get into all that. But before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. Make sure you get in the comments. Let us know what you think of the show. All of that's helped us out so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. So let's get into it. Sahar, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you. It's great to have a guest on our show. We're going to start off by just starting out by asking you just a simple question of, what do you think about the UFC? What do you think about MMA? And from a women's perspective, where women fighters have been added to the UFC roster basically after men, but now have become so prominent in UFC and in MMA, their rise has been meteoric. And I just want to know what you think about that, and whether or not the fact that women are in MMA and fighting in MMA, you see them in the octagon, that affected whether you watch MMA or watch UFC, and what you think about UFC in general.
So in general, I think pretty much in every sport, you get to know men players before female players. And for UFC, also for me, it was the same. I get to know UFC from Conor's fights. And then about a year ago, when I started watching on Saturday nights the UFC fights, I realized it's very interesting because you get to watch female and male fights at the same time in the same octagon without trying to schedule another time to watch female playing or acting or fighting. So from this perspective, I really like it, and it's very interesting. And then the way that I see females height fights are as popular as male is also very inspiring for me too.
Wow, that's good to hear. Yeah, that's actually a great point that you bring up about how when you tune into a sporting event, pretty much all other sports is going to be, whether it's men's or women's, and there's no in between, right? Yeah, I mean, only even in the Olympics, it's segregated, to time slots, and I'm sure that the prime slots, the good timings and the good sports, and it's usually like male dominated in that fact. So you bring up a great fact that the UFC or MMA in general, when they line up cards and when they have an event, on a Saturday night, primetime television, and, you see both, women, female fighters and male fighters together, like obviously not in the same octagon, but, between fights. So that's actually
night, basically.
It's in the same night. Yeah. So it's actually a great point that you bring up. I haven't actually thought about it that way.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's a good point because I don't know. It's so obvious that I think a lot of people just don't think about it. But it's as soon as she said it, I'm like, wow, that's actually it's something you don't. Again, it's so obvious that maybe you don't even think about it. But
right. Yeah, it's a good point.
But I didn't know that it's not the same octagon.
Well, it is the
Yeah,
same.
I
It is the
know.
same. It's the same night, right? It's
I
same
was just
octagon,
joking.
but it's same octagon, but it's like same night, same octagon, right? One good thing about this is that when you have female fighters and male fighters in the same night, sometimes it really makes female fighters look good because you see a better performance compared to main event or something like that, right? So one question from me I have from you is that is there any specific fight that like you were really like it was really interesting for you and you were amazed by watching that, and like it's just kind of, let's say when you talk about UFC, you always remember that fight because we all have, right? So for sure you might have one or two fights that you really remember that.
Yeah, I remember Conor and Khabib fight in 2018, in October 2018, I
Yeah.
guess. It was one of those fights that I watched after the first fight that I watched from UFC, and the whole vibe of fight got me so excited, and the way that they were populating the fight before it's even happening, it was really interesting, and I was looking forward to watch to what's going on in that fight.
So one question for that fight that you said Conor and Khabib, and that was that was the highest pay-per-view in MMA. But did you only watch that fight, or you only, because that was the main event? So I just want to know, like as a average UFC, like
Casual.
let's say if you're an average fan, did you watch the whole night, all fights in the night, or you only watch the main fights?
No, I just watched the main one because I wasn't really into it. But the year after that, ever since the pandemic started, I started watching every Saturday night. Not every, but pretty much all of them, and those main important fights.
Yeah.
Mainly.
Good. Yeah. Because one thing
we shouldn't call you a casual fan after all, right?
But
Nobody called her a casual fan.
Well, I mean,
but Sarah,
later on we're gonna have a casual fan.
I recommend
stay tuned for
you to
that.
watch the whole night. I recommend you to watch all fights, because sometimes the main fight is really boring, and if you only go for the main fight, you're gonna get frustrated because sometimes it happens. So
yeah, a lot of the newer guys that fight on the prelims, they want to make a name for themselves, and they want to get that, because usually they get paid way less, than the guys at the top. So they're chasing that bonus money, and also so
big performances get you big bucks.
Big
Simple as that.
So as Sam said, some of those fights are actually way better than the co-main or the main event on the same night.
Oh yeah, 100%, definitely.
Sure, I will start watching. Actually, I've been watching since pandemic started, the whole night. But before that, in summer 2017, when I got familiar with UFC from Conor's and Mayweather's fight, it was just that one for me. And after that, the year after, it was Conor's and Khabib. But since let's say June, maybe, I started to watch the whole night, and I started to realize a more interesting fact about how UFC works and how they set up the fights between two fighters. Once you defeat someone, you can call for an opponent, or you want to claim a belt, you go there and you call that person, whether or not they're gonna fight with you. But it's the way that they are arranging it, and the way that people try to boost their strengths is really interesting. And I got realized a lot of interesting point about MMA and UFC in general.
It's something you don't see in every sport.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the matchmaking. The matchmaking in UFC in general, or in combat sports in general, it has this kind of like this one-on-one factor where it's just two athletes, both athletes. It's all up to them, and they have to go in there and perform. Similar to kind of tennis, but I mean, and other individual sports for sure, but I guess they don't have the personas that some of these fighters have. And I wanted to ask you this, Sahar, whether it's some of the fighters' personalities and the way they act outside the octagon and outside the sport that actually grabs your attention.
I didn't actually look into that more. But sometimes on Twitter or on Instagram, I get to see some pictures. For example, I saw some pictures of Amanda Nunes and her son, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't really check the kid's gender,
I think it's a
but
boy,
it was
yeah.
I think so. Usually
interesting.
lesbian couples get a boy, trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And gay couples get a girl.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, mother family.
I've heard a lot, but yeah, whatever. Let's skip past that.
Hey, whatever. Go ahead, Sasha.
Yeah, I've been on Twitter. I've been checking, or sometimes when they're fighting and then the fighters are tweeting, I go check their profile and what their opinion about the fight and what they think. And that time, I just check outside of that octagon box.
Okay. So you don't hear too much about their kind of outside the octagon lives as much, basically. Basically, you see them more when they're in the sport and competing, basically.
Yes.
Which some people might argue that actually that's the best side of.
Yeah, it could be,
MMA.
definitely. Yeah, I
As,
bring that up in terms of stardom.
Yeah, for sure.
People you see past the sport, kind of the Ronaldos and like
Yeah.
those people.
Yeah, like to go back to what you said earlier, you said like the fight that actually got you into watching UFC was a boxing match, and that was something that caught my attention. It's kind of crazy, right? It wasn't even a UFC match that got you into it.
Which one?
Conor versus
Khabib?
right?
Mayweather.
Yeah, Conor
Oh,
versus
I thought
Floyd.
you said Khabib.
I
Conor
thought you
versus
said
That was the
Khabib.
first.
I thought
That
you
was
said
the
Khabib.
first. No.
Oh, you saw
was
the
the
Mayweather
first-
and then got excited for the Conor Khabib.
I think the
Yeah.
Conor
Okay.
Khabib was the first MMA fight you watched. So that kind of shows the level of Conor, right? And
Yeah.
the reputation globally. Not even just in the sport, but on a global level, it's just crazy how the influence that this guy has.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure we spoke about this in the past, but I mean, Conor has elevated the UFC and the MMA into just a
New
whole
levels,
nother
yeah.
realm. Like,
Well,
it's-
one thing we have to consider is that, like, for sure, Conor is a great promoter, but especially for that Mayweather fight and Conor fight, they provided a big platform for that, right? So
Well,
they did
obviously,
the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
world
Yeah.
Well,
tour.
yeah, I mean, Mayweather is
Like,
no
if you
pushover.
would,
right?
yeah.
Two
so,
giants, from two different sports are
Yeah.
like
Yeah, so they
Flashing.
really boosted up too. So, but yeah, for sure there were two big names, and
Yeah.
it was a
That
great
that
fight.
event was also one of the highest paying, one of the highest earning events, even in the boxing realm, kind of. So it just shows you how much of star power Conor had.
But Sarah, one question. So you think MMA is more interesting to watch compared to boxing, right? Or you watch boxing once in a while too?
Yeah, MMA is more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously,
It's a combination of skills and talents, and it's not just boxing. And I think it's more interesting rather than when it's a combination.
And one thing with MMA is that the title fight is five minutes, but in boxing it's 12 rounds. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's just really long. It's like baseball. Like I always say, baseball is just waste of time to watch because it's just too long, right?
I mean,
It's the same
boxing
thing,
too.
so-
Boxing back in the day, like in the 90s, boxing was huge. I mean, even before that, for years. But like now, I don't know. I think the hype is, still there. Like as everyone's saying, like
Yeah, it's
boxing is
definitely the long 12 rounds. Oh man, it's
So
too much.
now
It
you
goes to
can't
decision.
obviously you can't compare the two sports right now. MMA.
No, but it has boxing has its OGs, if you will.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And-
saying. If you want to compare them, compare boxing like from 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So one when you come here, we always test people. So can you name 4 champions for me? It's easy. It's an easy question. You should be able to name them.
Okay, so Israel Adesanya,
Okay.
Yeah.
and then DC.
Former
No,
champion.
former
Yeah.
champion.
Okay.
The other
Retired.
one, Amanda Nunes.
Yes.
good job. Yeah. Give me one
And
more.
then Khabib.
Yeah, well,
First-
yeah.
I don't count- okay, I don't count-
Controversially, yes.
Former.
I don't count that one because everyone,
Yeah.
even my grandma knows Khabib. So go for Anders.
Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, sure.
No,
yeah, I
he's
mean,
not
I
a
mean,
champ.
Dustin,
You gave him the title, huh?
well,
Yeah,
he
I gave him
considers
the title
himself the
because I
champion.
was amazed the way that he
Yeah. Yeah.
fight last week.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
2 weeks ago, okay.
Yeah, the lightweight division is a little controversial right now.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. You can name anyone, and they could possibly. But actually, Dustin said it in his interview that he's like, to me, I'm the champion. So that's what he believes.
I don't care what you do with the. That's what
Well,
And also
let's-
Shevchenko, is she a champion?
Yeah,
yeah, for
definitely.
sure.
Okay,
yeah.
so you got
Valentina,
your
yeah.
course somewhere.
yeah, okay.
there you go.
That's
She
it.
knows her, and she knows it.
Yeah,
All right.
she knows this. So I had a question for you. First off, I want to know what's the vibe you get from, I don't want to say all, but from most female fighters, and if it's inspiring to you at all. Like, I mean, are you inspired by these female fighters?
Yes, actually, they are very inspiring to me. That's someone who just started watching female fighting. At the beginning, you cannot expect to see sexy, feminine-looking fighters, and then you are like, your imagination is to see like huge women and to fight. Honestly, I'm just talking to you very honest, but you get to see the opposite side. The story is not that. To me, it's more like being talented, being fit, and it's more about the skill and intelligence. And it's really, really changed my mind about the whole fighting story.
Do you ever consider to become a fighter?
Yeah.
Whoa, good
Well,
looking.
when you see some of the paychecks, everyone considers
Well, just to
being a
let you
fighter,
know,
but
just to
then-
let you know, always good-looking ones get smashed in UFC. So this is probably you better
That's
not
not
always.
true.
Not always.
Most
That's
of the
not
time, come on.
true.
Most of
I
the
like the premiere. Like,
Shevchenko,
the
man.
Yeah,
beginning of
Shevchenko.
it.
you okay? Name two
Rose.
other for me.
Shevchenko's a
Joanna, I
goat.
mean, they've all lost, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like the way
Mm.
that they walk into to get into octagon, and they have their whole team going after them, and then playing their favorite song or music, and that's the most inspiring part for me. And for women, as a woman, who when I see like females so strong, so talented, I get more inspired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the walk up and the whole process and everything we talked about it like throughout the night is the exact same for every fighter. So you have like perfect equality in terms of female fighters and male fighters, in the UFC, which is very important, And speaking of equality and I'm just gonna say that assholes in the media. This week, I don't
Steven, talking to
if it
you.
was it today? Most likely it was yesterday. But that he said some quotes on ESPN where he mentioned that he does not like female fighters, female MMA fighters. I'm assuming he doesn't like to see them because they're unskilled and uninteresting and boring.
Well,
and
his exact quote is, "I don't want to see women in UFC. I just don't like it." This is his exact quote, like his
Okay.
exact sentence.
he didn't follow up on that.
No, he.
That-
Well, no,
that's-
I mean,
that's
like,
the-
this is one of like the headline.
No, but just
like, what
read
he
the
said.
whole thing,
Yeah,
man.
but what about the unskilled part about how it's
Yeah,
They're
well,
not-
and then he goes on, he rambles on to go, how, like, this guy to me, he's the big mouth.
Mara,
of,
just read the
ESPN.
whole thing first.
I don't want.
Yeah,
this guy's
I
not
mean,
even that
it's
important.
not even- yeah, I
I
mean,
don't want to.
yeah, he probably rambles on backing up his point.
Yeah,
He just rambles on backing up
It's
his point
just,
how he doesn't like it. I don't know how to roast this guy, to be honest with you. Sam, I'm gonna give you first pick, so I'm gonna come up with mine.
Okay, but overall, I never liked this guy. This story goes for a long time ago, like for Cowboy and for the fight of Cowboy and Connor. That's when I realized this guy doesn't know shit about MMA fighting, And if you drop some comments and no one likes, like no fans don't like it, media doesn't like it, he did that last time. And to back it up, he posted a video of himself sparring, and he was, as Joe Rogan said, he was punching so low. I don't even know if it was an uppercut or whatever it was, but he was punching the other guy's neck basically. And his point was to say that I know MMA and this and that. And the thing is, I think in order to comment about these stuff, you need to be fighter yourself, because it's a whole different vibe. Like,
or at least have some knowledge,
Yeah.
you know,
The
like
thing is
about
that-
MMA. You don't have to be a fighter, but you know, like I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know why ESPN invites this guy, you know, to talk about fights. I mean, he already covers NBA, right? And sometimes football and baseball.
Covers everything, man.
Yeah,
That's the problem. He shouldn't.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure there's many more people out there, you know, that are
More
dying to
qualified.
get, you know, just dying to get a chance to, you know, get a platform like this
Absolutely.
to be able to, you know, talk about a sport that they're passionate about and they love, you know, which is
And
MMA.
know something about.
So why do we need to have a guy that has absolutely no knowledge about the sport and is just so ignorant that, you know, just opens his mouth and just says,
and
I mean,
one thing like follow to what you said, like I was gonna say the same point that you just said. Like, we all say this guy is this and that and why he comments like that, but to be honest with you, I can, like, I say maybe I put 80% of the fault on him, but the rest of the 20% is not his fault, because they give him that platform. So when you give that platform, you shouldn't put it all on him. He's a douchebag for sure. But when ESPN provides that platform for the guy, then that's what happens. Because someone who always like comments about other sports like basketball and different stuff like that, it's completely different vibe when it comes to fighting. Because the defeat itself is really bad. Like, as a fighter, when you get defeated, like, you have a bad feeling yourself, and to have someone that, it's a whole different idea. One more thing that he doesn't realize, and he always has that in his approach, is that when you're talking about basketball, soccer, or whatever else, the player that you're talking about, that player has every week, that player has a chance to show himself. So if he missed one game, he can do it in the next game. But if you're a fighter, if you get knocked down, you lose 6 months.
You might lose your whole career every
but
time you step in the octagon.
In the best case scenario, you lose 6 months. So this guy doesn't know anything, and he keeps commenting about these stuff, and someone has to shut him up. And
what baffles me the
but
most.
These kind of people, they only learn the lesson once they get smashed by a fighter or someone.
Like
seriously,
Khamzat.
You think no, but
I don't see that happening.
But you think if you talk shit, someone might be gentleman and say something, say okay, whatever. But you think if you talk shit like that about, like, let's say, I don't know, Nate Diaz, if the guy see you, he's gonna fuck you up. So that's gonna happen.
The guy is
and he will
clearly.
learn his lesson. So,
I mean, not even that. That's a whole different. But we're just talking. You know, this guy just opens his mouth and says whatever he wants, and you're talking about hundreds of people. You know, hundreds of women that, you know, a lot of them have, you know, sacrificed a lot in their lives. You know, they have worked, you know, so many years, so hard. You know, you have, you know, no idea what they've given up. You know, like, to get to where they are. You know, to like be in a main event, you know, where like your co-main event is like two male fighters and you're the main event. That's huge, you know. Or like for someone like Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm, you know, to do like, you know, what they did back in the day, you know. And you know, you can't just be ignorant like that.
Sahar, what do you think of this guy?
So, well, I think that I've seen some commentators that are already fighter or being fighter. So they knew how hard is that to get there, to fight and to get a title, to hold it. Then if this guy that you're talking about, he's just like a sport reporter or something without any sort of good qualities, right? You've been talking shit about people all the time. So I think one person's opinion, it's not going to change anything, and you just let people be like the way that they want.
This guy is not even an ex-athlete.
Okay,
well,
so
that's
he doesn't
true.
know,
That's
and
true.
probably is jealous of women.
And then
That's true.
one thing
I just want
to.
That's true what you say, that it's just his opinion. But when you have a platform as big as ESPN, and you say something, and then like a minute after, like maybe millions of people have heard it or seen it. You have a way bigger influence, and with that comes a way bigger responsibility, of like watching what you say. Like even on this show, we do some we know our stuff, that we talk about MMA, but you can't just sit there, and with that platform, and just say whatever you want.
Exactly, exactly. One thing Mehrad and Mani know is that I'm a Connor fan, but when I'm in this channel, I try to be fair. And one time, even Mehrad said, like, why are you talking like that? I'm like, I'm trying
Well,
to be
no,
fair.
here, like, we can have our opinions. We're not getting
yeah.
paid
So
from ESPN. We
like,
don't have a platform as big as this guy. Sure, we can have our
Yeah,
opinion.
but I'm oh, I think we lost Sahar there for a sec. But just to continue on that point, I think ESPN is definitely going to take some sort of action towards this, because
Also,
the fact that it blew up on Twitter, and it's one of those equality issues and all that stuff. It's definitely going to get addressed by ESPN 100%. This guy's going to come out and give an apology to what he said, and like try to explain that this is not actually what he meant, but like I just don't want to see women get hurt or stuff like that, and trying to scapegoat his way out of it.
He was more like, yeah, these fights are boring. Like it's just.
Yeah, no, he's not going to be able to go back on that note whatsoever.
No.
So,
And something about Twitter that, based on experience, people do a lot of things to get impressions when they are bored on Twitter. And probably you say this guy, he wasn't even an ex-athlete, and he's been talking about people a lot. So I think this is his way of getting impression and attention.
Could be.
And if ESPN is going to consider this as an equality issue, they're going to do something about it for sure.
yeah, what scares me though is that since you say it's like for ratings and clickbait and stuff like that on Twitter, I just hope that it's not ESPN driven. ESPN was like, wow, this guy said something really hot, let's put it on the Twitter so it blows up. And that wouldn't be too short of ESPN. They're pretty much one of the lowest standards in sport commentating. That is, I mean, everything else is just usually not the greatest. But I come from a very European bias, so don't take my word for it. All right, let's move on from this prick, and let's round off the conversation with any final questions that you guys wanted to ask Sahar. And Sahar, one thing that I do want to ask you before we round this conversation off is when you see fighters sort of, whether they be male or female or whatnot, when they have like their outside lives being such kind of, not all, I mean the ones that aren't superstars, let's put it that way, the ones that aren't so well known or have great contracts or whatnot, when you see them and the fact that they have to provide for their family, make sure that they get their contracts met, whether they can get some bonuses and stuff like that. When you see that kind of level in UFC, because with other sports, usually there's just a higher threshold of payment or salary, if you will. But in the UFC, you have some fighters that are not so well paid, and yet they may provide just as much entertainment value as some of the higher fighting UFCs and stuff. Do you I'm not sure if you were aware of that in the UFC, or that's how fighters are, but we get to see that through their families, through their personal lives and stuff like that. Do you think that there should be a difference, and MMA fighters should be kind of all on a level playing field in terms of other athletes getting minimum compensation?
Yes, I found about this a fact when one of the fighters back in like July, he was fighting very good. He actually wins after 5 rounds, and he was still upset. And I was like,
I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
I asked him,
I think it was Brandon Royval.
How it works. And I was, oh my God, this guy fight for 25 minutes so hard. And then he probably was preparing a month or two, and he's still upset because of the salary. And I didn't have any clue that it's like that. So UFC and MMA, at the same time that it has a lot of unexpected, amazing features that you get to see in the fights, I think it should compensate a minimum, like not minimum wage, but a minimum thing for all the fighters. It's correct. It's true that you can call your opponent, you can sign a contract 2 weeks before the fight, 1 month before the fight. You can make money, but at the same time, you may lose money as fast as the time you get to fight. So I think it would be fair to have a basic amount of money to be paid to them when they are saying, okay, I'm gonna fight. And they are paying a lot to their coaches, their staff, to the gym that they are preparing for. So I think it should be it should have been that way, not the other way around.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting that you bring up Brandon Royval. I'm sure it's Brandon Royval. There is another guy. I think.
Yeah, he won, and then he said I have to go to work tomorrow.
I'm not sure, but yeah, he said I have to go to work tomorrow, and I wasn't impressed by my performance because he wouldn't get a performance bonus based on that performance. That interview actually struck up a chord with me as well, and it was like the first turning point, and I'm like, this is kind of cringe to watch in terms of, this guy put his whole heart out there, and then now he's talking to the commentators, and he's saying, that was just a bad performance. It's not going to be enough to like keep me out of my 9-to-5 job tomorrow, in a sense. And I was just like, God damn, that's not nice, and that's not nice. And I'm glad at least he got some airtime to say that, so that everybody else can see as well. But yeah, that's very interesting. Hopefully something has changed in that sense. So yeah, guys, any final remarks or questions that you want to poke? And if not, then we can basically call it a quits on this conversation.
It was good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sahar, for being on the show. We hope you enjoy the fights that are coming up in 2021, which is some bangers coming up. So hopefully we get to talk to you more about them in the future. Thank you for being on the show.
It was fun talking to you guys.
Thank you for
likewise.
Thank you for coming to the show. Watch the whole fight. Don't watch the main fight only. Okay, just watch the whole fight. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye. Take care. Bye.
All right, guys. So let's move on to the fight card that is coming up this Saturday, which is February 6th. At 8 p.m. From UFC Vegas, UFC Apex. It's going to be in the main event, Alistair Overeem versus Alexander Volkov at heavyweight. And we all know that Alistair Overeem is, in his words, on a title path. But in reality, I am not so sure how much he has left in the tank. Man, this guy has been in many fights. Just his record is freaking 47 wins, 18 losses, zero draws, 1 no contest. Like, damn, that is a lot of time in the octagon.
How old is he?
Been there, done that.
He's in his 40s for sure. I would say maybe 41, 42. But he is very determined to get his title. And he said recently in an interview that once he gets the UFC title, he will retire immediately, because
he's 40.
That's what he should be doing now, in a sense. But he's still going strong, and this this fight that he has coming up against Alexander Volkov is doable. Like it's definitely at the level where he's still able to accomplish his goals, but I'm just not sure where he goes after. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's definitely on the right path. In his own words, he's on the. As you said,
he's on the title path. Yeah.
And he won his last 2 fights. Especially his last fight was a good performance. Wasn't too bad. Volkov again. I think this one.
He also had a great performance.
Yeah, but not too convincing.
Sure.
After that fight with Curtis Blades, I can't think of Volkov as a.
Well, that's more of a statement on Curtis Blades' style.
Yeah, for sure. But if you can't cancel that out, that also says something about like
Let's see if Derek Lewis can cancel it out.
Yeah. Well, I think he has a way better chance.
We'll see.
But yeah, Volkov, I think he's gonna move past Volkov for sure. But then again, yeah, as you said, what next? Everyone in the top 5, top 4.
Yeah, after that is just it's just.
And then add John Jones to that mix.
Yeah, Sam, I know you've seen Alistair Overeem throughout the years, even before he came to the UFC.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen him in his prime, if you will, when he was basically, jacked as all hell, and just kind of striking everybody out, and you see this massive man who has the ability to kick you in the face like that. It was something of
Monty, let me tell you something. Those days that he was in his prime time, he was one of those fighters that some people not some people, but like some other fighters, when they wanted to diss him, they used to say he's on
steroids. Yeah, I mean,
I remember
to the eye, it makes sense that he would, but he's not. He's fully clean. I mean, you can never know how much, but damn, that guy's jacked. He's still jacked at this age. He's 40.
He was a good fan. He was on his prime. He was a good fighter. I think the reason that he was like, he had power in his hands. Like he had power in his hands. Like some people might not say that, but I think he had power in his hands. But you don't know. Like I personally cannot say this confidently, but like some people say that when you get older, you lose your power in your hands. So that can be a factor, right? What I think is that, let's say even if he wins this fight, I think the other people that they are in the same division, like other fighters, by the time that, because you're not going to give him title fight after this, right? So it's going to take maybe, I don't know, let's say
one more fight at best.
One more fight. I don't think one more fight. I think 2 more fights. But
let's say they do him favors.
2 more fights. But then I think the other people, the other fighters in the division that he is, by the time that, let's say he wins this fight and he wins the next fight and he wins the next, they're gonna be such a big names that maybe no one really wants to fight him that much. You know what I mean? And I think they're tougher fighters in the division.
Although the heavyweight division isn't as stacked as some of the other divisions.
It's not stacked. It's just the top 5, I guess. That.
Yeah. But if he wins this fight and Miocic and Ngannou, whichever way that ends up, doesn't matter. You could see them. You could see Overeem get the next shot after that.
Well, yeah.
That also depends on Stipe. If Stipe wins and retires, then we have a whole other shit to talk about. But if Ngannou wins, for example, you would give him Overeem right after, give him a chance to avenge his loss.
That just shows how empty the heavyweight division is.
Exactly. So when you say he's 2-3 fights away, I mean, not really. I mean, he could be 1 fight away, literally. Yeah, even if he has a good performance here, or like knocks Volkov out in the first round, sure, give him a title shot. I mean, he's already like in his twilight years, ready to retire. Maybe the UFC might give him a favor, do him a favor, and be like, all right, let's see what Miocic and Ngannou ends up being. And whoever wins that, you're up next, and then that's it. It's your last chance. Yeah, that'll be perfect for him, if anything. But I'm excited to see this fight. I love Overeem. I love his style. I mean, right now, I guess he is in his twilight years, so you can't really expect fireworks that much. But it is heavyweight, so anything can happen in an instant.
Still knocking people out.
Yeah, so, definitely. And I don't see Volkov as one of the top 5s either. So it could be a very interesting matchup. Volkov could take that in his stride and be like, hey, everyone's writing me out as well. I mean, this guy's 8 years older than me. I'm probably in the prime of my life right now as a heavyweight. I should be able to take this guy out, and if I don't,
he can. I think he can.
Yeah, definitely.
Even with the kicks,
he has the length advantage.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just utilize those kicks. Just watch your distance control. Maybe, I don't know.
The thing is,
I think I'll go with Overeem.
The skills to the skills, you're right. The skills to the skills, Overeem is better fighter. He's for sure. But 8 year different. Like when someone's 8 year younger than you, and it's different. It's different. If Overeem was like 38 or 37, and the other guy was 29 or something, I wouldn't say this. But if you're 8 years older than the other guy and you're past 40, then I don't think you
But
can.
his last
You're not
opponent
as
was
sharp,
29, 20.
Yeah, the thing
30,
about
Sakai, right? Augusto
heavyweights
Sakai.
though, yeah, heavyweights, they
he's
tend
30.
to hit prime a little older anyway, so you can see a little bit of leeway, and also the fact that at the heavyweight division, one punch is all it takes by anyone, even an old guy. So, yeah, I mean, I do not see Overeem as an old guy by any means, to be fair, because that guy is still more jacked than all three of us put together. So we can't say anything.
Yeah, no, he's got one last push, and maybe you can do it.
Anyways, yeah, I'm backing Overeem to take this one too, just because I'm a homer. I have no other reasons. Let's move on to the co-main event. Cory Sandhagen is back after an impressive performance against Marlon Moraes. I love saying his last name. And he's coming up against a veteran, Frankie Edgar. Another fighter, Sam, from your days. Frankie Edgar was something else, man. What do you remember from him?
Oh, Frankie Edgar, like he's one of the complete fighters, but like he really earned the respect. Like everyone knew Frankie Edgar, but there was a fight long time ago that it was between Gray Maynard and Frankie Edgar, and the first fight, Gray Maynard beat Frankie Edgar easily. He won that fight. So when the rematch came, and I think I don't know if I'm sure, but like I think at the time the only guy that defeat Frankie Edgar was Gray Maynard. So he only had one loss at the time. So the fight starts and he gets knocked down, and he gets knocked down big time, guys. I'm telling you, like that guy that. I'm not saying the ref supposed to stop the fight, but it was about to finish. Like the guy was on the ground. You know what I mean? He was just he barely survived the first round. He barely survived. Like everyone was like, this fight is over in the second round. And then after second round, he started to pick up the fight and he really fought his way out to a draw. So the fight went to draw. And then in the third fight, he won the fight. He won the fight by decision. But the thing is, there's no quit in the guy. And one ability he has is that in middle of, because guys, many fighters, they're good wrestlers and they're good, like there are many fighters that they're complete. Like the guy has a good wrestling and he has good striking. But one thing Frankie Edgar has is that in middle of exchanging, he can just pick you up and drop you down. So he has that ability to take the fight to ground really fast. That's how he was when he was young, and he has that fan base. So I really love the guy, and I think he can be, like even though he's not in his prime anymore, I think he can win this fight. The other fighter that you told me about, I forgot how was his like. I know that I know that he won against Mirage, but I just don't remember how he
got
spinning
a back kick, and then he just dropped him.
Okay.
It just grazed him though. It was like not at the cleanest of contacts, but he grazed him.
Okay, I remember. But it was that kick, and it was finished, right?
No, he jumped on him after.
They jumped on. Okay,
but they dropped. But they
the kick was.
But listen, we have a similar situation in this fight. Cory Sandhagen, 28. Frankie Edgar, 39. A very similar situation, more than a decade between them. And Cory Sandhagen, I have to say, is definitely one of those new up-and-coming fighters that are this new breed of fighter. Similar to how you say Frankie Edgar is such a complete fighter, Cory Sandhagen is just as complete of a fighter, for sure.
Yeah.
And his style is definitely something that's pretty much new in the UFC, and not everybody's so used to it yet. He's long, lanky. He has the striking ability, yet he's fantastic on the ground, in the scramble, has the wrestling to back it up. So it's going to be an interesting fight. Frankie Edgar, you can never deny his heart. He's always going to be in the fight no matter what. What I'm afraid of is if Cory Sandhagen is going to just have a little bit too much for him in terms of, his youth, his power, and, technique-wise and stuff. and it may be an ugly night for Frankie. I'm not sure. I really hope. I hope it's not, but it seems to me, it feels to me like the UFC is tossing him out in the pack of lions, if you will. You know what I mean? Kind of like bringing like their young fighter to just kind of like rip him open and finish his career. I get wind of that kind of vibe, but I hope it's not like
the
that.
best matchup for him for sure. He did lose a couple fights, in the last couple of years, but his last performance was actually impressive. I'm talking about Frankie Edgar.
Frankie, yeah, for sure.
Against Pedro Munoz, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Pedro Munoz. Yeah. And that was the fight I was not expecting him to win, and he actually put on a great performance. So maybe again, but just like Overeem, maybe he's got one.
But Overeem is a little bit different in terms of how he's looked like pretty good in the past, recently, and Volkov hasn't looked convincing. Sandhagen has looked deadly.
Yeah, that's why I said it's like not a good matchup for Edgar.
I agree with Monty on that. That he's right. It's like this doesn't look really good for Frankie, because when you compare everything, like even the age, the reach and everything, the other guy is in his he's in his way to his prime, right? But just there's one thing I want to mention. Sometimes when you are looking at a fight, you compare fighter A to fighter B, and then you see there's more points that is supporting the idea that fighter A is gonna win the fight because he's the better striker, he's better in this, better in that, he's a younger guy, and you see only one factor on the other side. But sometimes that factor can be really big. And
it's a fight.
For Frankie Edgar, experience. The only factor, as Monty said, is experience, right? One thing, I'm just giving you an example. For example, when Conor wanted to fight Dustin, everyone said because of this reason, that reason, Conor's going to win the fight. But one advantage that Dustin had, as I said before the fight, was that he's been more active. And that one reason, just win the fight. So that's one thing one way we can look at it. The only thing that Frankie Edgar has, or the only advantage he has, is his experience, and if he can utilize on that, maybe he can win the fight.
Definitely.
So basic, I agree with Monty. They kind of want to put him with the Wolves or something.
Yeah, it's just like any other. On paper, it looks unmatched, but you never know where you're gonna get in the fight. And I definitely, for sure, agree with the experience, because Cory Sandhagen is definitely 28, and we saw in the Aljo fight how his inexperience showed. So I mean, sure, he's definitely improved since then, but I mean, it was only less than a year ago. So I think maybe his experience and heart are gonna be his key. It's gonna be the key to victory for this one. All right, so we also have a few other fights that are not necessarily blockbuster. Marianne Renault is fighting with Macy Chasen. I haven't seen Macy Chasen fight, but she has a good record. Marianne Renault is definitely just like an OG in the UFC. She fights anyone, anytime, anywhere. Forgetting about some of the other fights, I don't know how this fight is not a co-main or even higher on the card. I guess maybe they realize that they have just a couple of not so famous fights and they want to start off the card with a bang.
I was gonna say,
makes sense. I hope that's the thinking behind it. Beneil Dariush versus Carlos Diego Ferreira.
There you go.
These Spanish names are the funnest. But two top lightweight contender, top 10 lightweights going at it. They're the only, no, they're not the only ranked people, but they're probably the only two. Well, the heavyweights are all ranked. You can't really say anything, but
I mean,
that's a high ranking in the lightweight
main event.
In the lightweight division going at it. I mean, Beneil Dariush has been on a tear. He's on 2 knockout spree. Ferreira is off of another victory over Perez, I believe, last year.
Yep.
I don't know if he fought since then. No, he hasn't. Yeah, so he beat Perez, and he's won both of his fights before that too. And Ferreira is no pushover for sure in the lightweight division. Everybody avoids this guy because
Apparently he's on a 6 win streak.
Very similar to Charles Oliveira, is deadly on the floor, on the ground. And so this fight, I don't know why it's not getting the love it deserves, man. I can't wait for this fight. This is the fight I'm looking forward to.
It's what you said. They just want to start off the main card, with a banger.
Perhaps.
Because we know both of these guys, they show up every time. Like Beneil Dariush, last time he missed weight, but I mean you could see it in his face and his body language, that he wasn't too impressed with himself because he missed weight. But nonetheless, man, he got a crazy KO. He put on a great performance. The fight before that, he got a KO with a spinning back fist. I mean, this guy has just so much in his arsenal. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're gonna get into that.
So excited for this fight. So I'll give you some of the things. Ferreira is his elder at 36. Beneil Dariush is 31. Not such a big difference. I wouldn't really consider that much of a factor in this fight. Ferreira has a significant reach over him. About 6 centimeters or less. Which doesn't really play into Ferreira's game plan all that much because he's more of a savage on the ground. But for Beneil, because recently we've seen that he's upped his striking game a lot. I mean, he's improved tremendously, and he has this tendency, as he's explained it himself before, where he kind of loses control or loses his head and gets in a phone booth fight. Just because he just can't control that blood urge that's in there.
Yeah, I heard him. Sorry, I heard him say it once about himself. He's like, I don't know if it's, no. He's like, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I have this thing when I get hit, it just turns on for me. I just see red and I just
definitely a bad thing.
So. Well, sometimes it works for him, but again, sometimes
it may work for you,
always be
but
good,
you get lucky
sure.
if it works for you. But
he has this thing, like you hit him, and then he's like after you, no matter what.
His opponent though, Ferreira, is not necessarily the greatest striker in the UFC, so you would think that perhaps his Beneil's kind of like erratic kind of charge forward with his punching and stuff may serve him well in this fight, perhaps. But one thing that he needs to definitely avoid is getting into these scrambles and stuff with this guy, because he is fast and he is agile. So even though Beneil Dariush is a world-class wrestler, this guy's tricky, it's not so easy to avoid some of his traps.
He can the darts can be a problem, right? So like if you go for a takedown against a really good jiu-jitsu guy, you might get caught in I don't know, guillotine darts or something like that. So he has to be careful with that. But overall, like I don't want to predict this fight, but I really think Beneil Dariush has a good future.
And he also has a great takedown defense.
Yeah,
Beneil Dariush.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's got all the skills to be a massive success. It's again talking about the mentality and his fight IQ and being smart in the octagon. Those things sometimes may not develop. So I'm excited for him to fight. I don't know. Who do you guys think is gonna be like? I
got Dariush. I don't know. It's either way. What's gonna make this fight a great fight, I think, is both of these guys. Beneil Dariush is on a 5-win streak, and Diego Ferreira is on a 6-win streak. So both of these guys are, definitely on their way to the top. To the top. And they both see each other, as a bump in the way, right? So it's gonna be on once.
It's such a choke point matchup.
Exactly, man. Once Bruce Buffer says those names, that's it. It's gonna be on.
Yeah, man. Ferreira it kind of scares me a little bit because I definitely want Beneil to win. I've been a really big fan of this guy, but Ferreira scares me, man. This guy made Pettis tap out last year. Pettis is no joke in jiu-jitsu, man. This guy doesn't get caught in anything like that, and this guy definitely caught him. So he's a little, it's a little iffy on that one. I hope it doesn't go to the ground because Ferreira, whether off its back or whether have Dariush on him or anything, it's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, it's deadly.
I don't think this fight. I think this fight, even though you guys might be disagree with me, I don't think this fight would go to ground because Beneil Dariush. Okay, Beneil Dariush won't go for a takedown because that guy is a great jiu-jitsu guy.
Yeah, he shouldn't if he's smart. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other guy, the Ferreira, he has a good jiu-jitsu, so and it's perfect, but he doesn't have the ability to take the fight to the ground because he's not as great wrestler as Beneil Dariush. So they're gonna lock up and stand up. In that situation, Beneil Dariush has a better situation, I think, but then the other guy has a better reach too. So it's gonna be a close stand-up match, I guess.
It's gonna be. I feel it's gonna be a stand-up too because both guys are pretty good on the ground. They're cultured on the ground, and they don't really want to go there. Although Ferreira probably does want to go there more, but he would probably realize that he doesn't have the wrestling advantage in the situation. Dariush, obviously, his striking has improved tremendously. I want to really see him, put it on, display how he's been improving and perhaps even get another knockout, man. It's possible with the kind of styles. But any other way it goes, and it's going to be a very tightly contested matchup. Talking about falling in the pecking order, in the prelims, the featured prelim at least, Michael Johnson is back. Man, you got to feel for this guy, dog. I mean, a talented fighter, very good. He just has unlucky matchups, very unlucky matchups.
He was in a difficult division.
Oh, yeah, of course. True. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. But, I mean, in that difficult division, he got tossed around to everybody at their best.
Yeah, the worst possible opponent.
So whoever was the best at that point, get on Michael Johnson.
Yeah.
Tony, Khabib, Gagey, everyone.
Poirier, everybody, man.
Well, he actually beat Poirier.
Yeah.
That was one of the
successes. Yeah. So he's facing Clay Guida. And obviously he's an OG in the game, 39 years old, kind of a workhorse, if you will, in terms of style. Not necessarily technically amazing, but relentless pressure and has a solid ground game as well. Michael Johnson is someone who's good at keeping his foes at range, picking them apart. A huge reach advantage. More than 10 centimeters of reach advantage. So you would expect this guy to be trying to make this fight as close as possible. I don't know how Michael Johnson's going to come out. To the
Johnson's going to smoke him. That's it.
I hope so.
I remember Clay Guida. I remember when he fought Diego Sanchez. He's been in UFC for a long time. I don't know. I think even though someone like. Even if you go to a fight against a really great guy and it's prime time and you lose a fight, I think you still become a better fighter. And when you look at the guys that Michael Johnson fought and compared to Clay Guida, and also you compare the reach advantage, he's gonna win that fight. I don't think it's gonna go to three. I think it's gonna finish the fight. It doesn't leave it to judges. So.
Yeah, I mean that on paper he should be able to do this, but we don't know what Michael Johnson is going to be like after quite a lengthy layoff, if you will, and also considering all the defeats that he had to go through in this past 3-4 years. What kind of damage, what kind of effect it has on him. So he lost his last fight in 2020. Wow, against Thiago Moises. May. It's a long time ago now. Michael Johnson lost. Again, lost to Stevie Ray, lost to Josh Emmett. And his last victory was against Artem Lobov.
Connor's best friend.
But damn, he is on a 4-fight loss streak. So I don't know. I hope he can crawl his way out, and he should be able to with Clay.
What about Clay Guida? What's his record? I think he didn't have that many wins.
Clay Guida, his last fight was a very
also,
close decision fight, I remember, and he was just disappointed that he didn't get the decision. And the other guy was very unconvincing. Yeah, it was against Bobby Green last year at the Apex. Bobby Green went on a kind of a rise after that, and then he lost again.
Yeah. Another
before
fight
that, he lost to Jim Miller.
Oh.
He beat BJ Penn in his twilight years, and he lost to Charles Oliveira via submission.
Well, one reason I'm saying Clay Guida is gonna lose is that I don't know. Maybe old days it wasn't like that, but like you have to think, man. When you go to a fight, you have to think. You have to have some strategy. You have to. It's not about being tough. You have to be tough, but it's not only that. You know what I mean? If it's not about just throwing a combo and just killing yourself to kill the guy. You know, I think Clay Guida fights like that. And if you want to fight like that, you're not going to end up anywhere. He's fighting Michael Johnson. He's not that great neither, but at least he had the experience to fight with the great guys. So
yeah, 100%. I mean, both of the guys have great experience for sure. But I'm hoping that Michael Johnson can rebound back from his horrid time in the UFC thus far in the past few years. So hopefully all the best to him. Best of luck. Personally, I'm looking forward to the Beneil Dariush fight only really because it's the only one that kind of matters in a divisional context. Of course, Overeem and Volkov.
Cory Sandhagen also,
in the heavyweight
for the division sake.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, if he gets,
the thing with Cory Sandhagen, though, I gotta say, if
he's not consistent,
if he didn't fight this, like if he wasn't going to fight and waited until Aljo Yan fought, he probably would have got the fight.
Maybe, or maybe but I mean, by the time they fight, and then they're gonna need a few months, to recover and then train again. It's gonna be at least we're talking.
Yeah, maybe the guy needs some money.
Yeah, or money, or he wants to stay active. Like we talked last week about an activity. So maybe he just wants to stay fit, wants the money, or it's just his contract.
Yeah,
but activity has to do with it for sure.
All right, guys. So that's pretty much the card that's coming up for us this Saturday. Can't wait. We had a 1-week break, and then now we're going back straight into it, and we're gonna have nonstop.
UFC promised
cards
to have no more Saturdays off.
Really?
That's what they. I saw that on Twitter. They're like, we promised no more Saturdays off. This was the last one.
Guys, when do we talk about 155 division again?
When we have another 155 fight, although we do with Beneil Dariush and Ferreira, but I mean, are they really in the picture?
Don't worry, man. That topic is gonna come up more than
but you always have time for that division.
We're always gonna talk about.
You always have time for that because there's enough. We have more stuff to say. You never run out.
Yeah, just the fact that there's no certainty around it yet means that this conversation is going to be going on and on, and they want everybody to talk about it, so we'll talk about it a lot. All right, guys, so let's wrap up this week. MJ, do you have any updates from Twitter? Anything you want to shout out, mention?
Not right now. Let's bring our second guest, and then we'll talk somewhere.
The second guest, I'm trying to see if they're available. They are actually on way, so I don't know about that. Perhaps we can wrap it up for this week, and then we can invite them back onto our show at a later time. Anyways, so it's been fun, guys. Thank you so much for you guys for tuning in, listening in. Don't forget to like, subscribe with bell notifications turned on so you know exactly when we upload, and get in the comments. Let us know what you think, who you think is going to be winning this weekend, whether you're backing Dariush, whether you're backing Ferreira, Overeem or Volkov. Let us know in the comments, and give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter.
And our conversations on Twitter, ask us your questions.
And that's all the plugs out of the way. So thank you again, all of us from all of us at 4-5 Fans. Thank you.
Okay, hold on, I have something.
I think Sam.
Mystic Sam wants to predict.
Guys, you know, all you bitches, you know, this is the voice of truth. Okay, go subscribe, follow. I don't know. There's a bunch of buttons there, so whatever you see, just press. Just don't press this one, but just whatever else you see, just press the button. You know,
not whatever you see.
You know, we talk the truth. That douchebag is Stephen A. Smith or whatever the fuck it is. That guy has how many followers that fucker has?
ESPN, damn,
he doesn't deserve it. So
help us get to ESPN.
Boo ESPN.
Help us get bigger than ESPN.
They're misogynistic.
We'll show them what MMA talk is.
Forget the ESPN. Let's go with SMGM or whatever the fuck it is. So guys, just
MGM.
Please subscribe.
We'll be at the MGM.
The more you subscribe, the better this show is gonna get. You know, we're gonna have a better studio. We're gonna have
more guests,
better guests.
Everybody.
You know, we're doing some shit behind the scene. You know, some magic is going on. Anyway, just do it. Anyway, that was my shout out for you. Take care.
All right, thank you guys so much. Thank you to Sahar, our guest, for joining us this week. A shout out to her. It was a lot of fun talking to her and getting her thoughts about females in MMA and MMA in general and the UFC in general. So thank you to her.
Masood, again,
Masood,
wish you all the best.
Wish you all the best. He'll be back next week. And he'll be here to talk some sense into y'all. All right. That's all of us from 4 Fight Fans. Take care. See you guys.
See you next week, guys.